Welcome. It is another edition of the Orange Bloods Modcast. I'm Geoff Ketchum. That's Anwar Richardson, Jason Suchomel, Alex Dunlap. We're going live today, as we did a week ago. It ended up being such a popular little endeavor, and there were enough reasons for us to continue to do so that we're doing it again. As we wait for people to jump into the chat room, I'll kind of set the stage for everybody. We're talking post-National Signing Day, the first signing day. There is a lot to recap. There's still a lot to discuss in terms of what happens with the remaining players on the board, whether it's Devin Campbell or Evan Stewart or Omari Abor, who suddenly comes out of nowhere yesterday and appears to be a guy that Texas fans need to keep a close eye on. Good morning as everybody jumps in and starts to leave the initial comments in our chat section. Hey, guys. We'll also be taking questions. We'll be interactive throughout the day as everybody starts to kind of file in here. Do us a solid. Like the video. Subscribe to the channel. We're like 119 away from 10,000 subscribers. I don't know why that matters so much more than 9,000 subscribers, but it's a nice round number that, you know, it feels like if you live to be 10,000 years old, you'd celebrate 10,000. Just, you know, it feels like that would be a special birthday if such a thing existed. Jason, I'm going to come to you first. How do you feel? I mean, did you get a good night's sleep?
No, and sadly, no. You know, and I'll tell you why. These damn kids. I have so many alerts on my phone as it's going off right now. Twitter, Instagram, for so many different recruits. And, of course, Evan Stewart and Denver Harris we're still waiting on. And these damn kids, man, they tweet and put on their Instagram. I don't know when these kids sleep because they're midnight, 1, 2 in the morning. They're putting shit out there, and my phone's beeping. So my wife probably hates me this morning. But, you know, I wouldn't say I had a good night's sleep, but I'm still glad yesterday's over and we can transition to day 2 of the early signing period. So.
Anything new that we need to, you know, it's funny. You had the Gary Patterson note late last night that he'll be in Austin today. I'll just let you set the table from a news standpoint, and then we can hop into some discussion and start taking questions and kind of go from there.
Yeah, ironically, of course, we tracked recruiting all week and yesterday and last night, and then it ends up being the Gary Patterson stuff was the new news for me last night. You know, recruiting kind of at a standstill from last night. We're waiting for Denver Harris to sign his letter of intent with somebody. He's going to announce his decision Saturday afternoon. The back and forth. I think I said yesterday, I can't remember what all I said, but I think it was confidence on the A&M side, optimism, cautious optimism on the Texas side, more hopeful optimism on the Texas side versus confidence on the A&M side that they've got Denver Harris wrapped up. And the same goes for Evan Stewart. We're still waiting for Evan Stewart. And again, I mean, I keep saying it, Evan could pop while we're broadcasting this live. He could wait till tonight. He could do it. I literally stayed up. We talked about this last night. I did purposely stay up past midnight last night. And that's long for this old man because Evan Stewart has a history of announcing at midnight. So I stayed up till about 12:30, all for naught. But so Evan could pop at any time. You know what, Ketch? I'm not even fully convinced Evan pops in this early signing period. He could just show up on a campus in January because he's an early enrollee. I think he'll want his splash. I'm expecting him to sign, but who the hell knows with Evan? But while we're waiting on all of that news to go down in the next 48 hours, I got wind last night, kind of randomly, but it's a guy that I trust wholeheartedly, and he's been a really good source of mine on several things. And he got wind from a good source of his, so I guess third hand, if you will, that Gary Patterson, former TCU coach, of course, is going to be in Austin today meeting with Steve Sarkisian. Well, I ran that by a second source. I always like to get multiple confirmations on stuff like that. And the second source said, yeah, that's true. He's going to be there, and he's meeting with the defensive staff as well. So I'm expecting him in Austin today to meet with Sark and I would guess Pete Kwiatkowski and some of the defensive coaches. Don't have a lot of details beyond that on Patterson, but just kind of texting back and forth. I get the picture. Maybe I don't think this thing's going to drag out for weeks. I think we're going to have an answer from Gary Patterson. I'm guessing a little bit here, but maybe even this week at some point. We're at Thursday, but I think this one wraps up pretty quickly. If things go well, I think the train is moving in the direction that he's going to be a part of this Texas staff in some capacity, but we'll be working on gathering more details today, of course.
Alex, I'll come to you. Let's talk about the Gary Patterson thing for a second. It's happening today. They literally are probably meeting. I'm looking at the clock as we, do the show. Doesn't seem like outside the realm of possibilities that they would be meeting right now as we do this Modcast. It seems like it's an analyst position that they're talking to Gary Patterson about. I mean, that's what I've heard, although the exact title and what it would be seems to be the thing that I hear a little different every time someone describes what they think is happening. Gary Patterson in this Texas program does what for you?
Well, that thing will take you from 6 to midnight, man. To get Gary Patterson at Texas? Come on, dude. That would be absolutely incredible. I don't understand how you could get him as an analyst. That feels like something. That feels like a Nick Saban move. Going in and getting one of these guys that was just an accomplished coach. Maybe fell on hard times at a place that he was at. We've seen it. These reclamation projects that he's been able to bring in these analyst positions. They've moved up to on-field positions and then going on from there to rehabilitate their careers. And it's not even really like Gary. I thought that the Gary Patterson firing was. Did you guys think that was particularly wise or smart? Or I thought that it was sort of handled in a kind of an awkward way. I certainly didn't see it coming the way that it did based on what he's done for that program. So
it wasn't a smooth transition for sure.
I'm not necessarily feeling like he really needs to go have a reclamation project or have his reputation rehab or anything like that. I'm most surprised that he would be interviewing for an analyst position. I mean, are we 100% sure that that's what it is? No. There's not any kind of on-field element. Like, to me, I don't think I would interview if I was Gary Patterson unless I was some kind of, assistant. I don't know, maybe not assistant head coach. I think they already have that role, but at least some kind of co-play caller on defense or something like that. It just seems like it would feel odd to me if he didn't have the interest on the open market to where he could possibly find himself in a landing spot with a more elevated title.
Anwar, I think the thing that really makes this unique is, this has been vetted through Chris Del Conte on some level. Those two guys know each other very well. They have a very good relationship. We had heard in the last couple of weeks that Gary Patterson has a really good relationship with former Texas athletic director DeLoss Dodds. So, and Texas seems to fit the program of a criteria that we've heard he would be interested in, which is a program that he thinks can do something. Like he doesn't want to go work for somebody who's trying to, quite frankly, be who he was at TCU, right? Like 8-4, crank it along. Those are good seasons. He wants to go to a place where there are high expectations, where winning a championship is part of the goal. And I've been somewhat surprised by, I figured that he would be one of these dudes that's like, I've been a head coach for 20 years. It's beneath me to take an analyst job or a coordinator job. Like, I'll get another head coaching job right away. And if I have to sit out, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's who I would be if I was 60 years old and had accomplished the things that he's accomplished. I think Alex is like, what the hell are we talking about is fair, because he's been such a big dog. Like, we talk about him every year with a mixture of jokingly high praise, because this guy's owned Texas for most of the last decade, and that now he would come to serve in a smaller than Gary Patterson normal role. I think it's just surprising.
Yeah, so, what I've heard is that, he's looking for, it's like, like what, titles. It's everyone's got titles, like special assistant to the head coach, title kind of thing. So a little bit more than an analyst per se, and a little bit more influence in it. So it's almost kind of like having coaching duties without all of the grunt work, day-to-day stuff of like recruiting and things to that effect. But it would be like some sort of special assistant kind of, role. He still believes, to Alex's point, Patterson, from everything I've heard, still believes that he can coach. Like, there's no parts of him that feels like he can't do this again. I think when he was holding out, for a little bit to see if there was like a head coaching position that might open up that they may be some interest in. So, for instance, I know he was waiting to see when OU made the change if he could get the call. So there was other positions that he was just kind of waiting to see. And then, he'll have this conversation here, but it's still, everything I've been told. And again, it's, I can't say I'm the Gary Patterson whisperer. So, I'll put a little disclaimer, but I would just tell you that the things that I've been told has been told by people close to him that says he's not in a hurry to make a decision. But, obviously he wanted teams to get past signing day before really having some conversation. So I think Texas will be one of the teams that he's interested in. And, the name resonates with a lot of Texas fans because of everything that he's accomplished. I don't know what other offers that he has out there, what other things he's considering. But everything you said is correct, Ketch. He wants to go somewhere that he feels like they can compete for a championship because he wants to ultimately get back into being a head coach. And the one thing he doesn't want to do is go to a program that is just kind of average. That won't help his profile. He wants to be able to be that guy where they win a championship, everyone's talking about the job that's been done, and then he gets elevated. So I think it's, if he does come, it's a win. But boy, if he does come and you're Pete Kwiatkowski and you've got Gary Patterson over your shoulder and that the athletic director loves this guy, boy, you talk about just a little bit of pressure.
Hey, Anwar, do you know what I was thinking the other day is, can you imagine what Coach PK is thinking about how everything went down at Washington? Like, is there an alternate universe where he could have stayed there and he would be head coach of the University of Washington right now?
Good question, Alex.
It's got to be something that weighs.
Impossible.
It's got to be something that weighs on it. I mean, they had the whole fallout between whether it's going to be him or that other dude who was gonna step up. That other dude fails. It seems like he would kind of be next.
Or he might have got fired if he'd have stayed at Washington. He might get fired with the rest of the staff.
There are alternate universes where all of those things exist.
Hey, Ketch, remember I was thinking when Anwar was talking, Mac Brown used to have like associate head coach. I mean, there were like 3 assistant head coaches with Mac Brown. Everybody had some kind of head coach title. So, but they were also some assistant coaches on the field. So I don't know how you do that without getting Patterson. He's not going to be a running backs coach, obviously, but I'm just saying with that job being open, running backs coach and associate head coach. But the how that puzzle comes together will be interesting to follow. But I agree with, I think it was Almar said it, what I was told. Patterson he still wants to coach. He wants to be a part of a championship. He wants to go to a place where he thinks he can win a championship. And what I've heard is he likes the idea of helping Texas make that transition into the SEC and be SEC ready and compete and win a championship there possibly. Funny Gary Patterson story, Almar and Alex and Ketch, you probably haven't heard this. It's not that funny, but it's funny to me. Like back in the day, I started the TCU Rivals page. I was working with Ketch on Orange Bloods, started the Texas Tech site. That thing took off, and they said, okay, hey, hand that one over to someone else. We want you to start the TCU site. So I did, and I didn't really do anything on that site ever. I mean, I just hired people to do the work. But I was at a camp. It was like I don't know if it was a Nike camp or something, but it was at the TCU campus. And Gary Patterson, he must have thought I was someone else, man. Boy, he couldn't have been. He's waving at me from afar, and I'm like, me? And he's like, yeah, you. Like, hey, man. Hey. And, he thought I was the dude doing all the work on the TCU site, which I wasn't. I was just the name behind, the publisher of the site at that time. But and that guy who he thought I was ended up being Jeremy Clark, who I think Jeremy's worth 24/7, but Jeremy's like owns that market up at TCU. But yeah, I should have used that to my advantage 20 years ago, and I could have had maybe an in with Gary Patterson right now, man. But
well, my 20 years ago Gary Patterson story is that I was on the road in 2003, 2004, going by Gilmer High School. Maybe it was a little bit later. God, I can't remember. I was in East Texas looking at some East Texas kid. I'm almost positive we were at Gilmer High School. And Gary Patterson, head coach, on his own, beating the streets. Like, we bumped into each other at Gilmer High School. He knew who I was, who knew who Orange Bloods was. He seemed to like that I was just a recruiting guy because he just wanted to talk recruiting. And that's like his thing. Like, if I'm building a sketch on Gary Patterson, and it's one of the reasons I think it's really fascinating, like how they use Gary Patterson if he comes aboard. For me, his strengths are he builds really tough defenses. They're really strong at the point of attack, especially when he's got good players. And, you know, he's known for development, and he's known for finding talent and having a great eye. He, more than anybody else in the state of Texas, I pay attention to who TCU offered under Gary Patterson. They don't offer all of the stars. It's not like they carpet bomb the entire state and every 4-star has an offer. He has his thing that he does in looking for talent. And, you know, I'm sure he's always wondered what it might look like to be able to use his eye for talent at a place with the resources like Texas to be able to recruit the best of the best of the best. God, I mean, it would just, it would be like, you know, it'd be like having Alex and not using any of his scouting abilities, right? We have a role for you, but never do that thing that you do best. It'd be like hiring Jason Suchomel and having him just cover soccer. I mean, you know, I'm sure he could do it. I'm sure he could do it well, but like, why would you not take advantage of what he does best? It will be interesting to see with Gary Patterson, if they bring him aboard, what elements of his skill set they're most able to get a lot out of, and what his specific role would be. He's a huge personality. So having him in the building, Anwar, just in the building, boy, that's a guy who I would believe will walk around thinking, I'm the best person on this staff. You know,
hell yeah. I mean, he's gonna walk into the building feeling like I own this building. I mean, like he's gonna walk in here and see all the you know, the cool things about UT, but still feel like I'm the man. Like, I beat Texas 7 out of 10 times in the past decade. Whatever coach you threw at me,
true.
I mean, I've knocked them off. So, I mean, maybe it doesn't happen this year particularly, but he's still got to feel good about who the hell he is. He is GP. You know,
he didn't knock off Sarkisian.
No, that's not gonna say. That's the only one. That's the only one. But I mean, he still feels like, come on now. You know, y'all know who I am.
I think it's hysterical. Let's move into some recruiting conversation. But
by the way, I may be able to have some good Gary Patterson stuff in the war room because I just got a couple of text messages coincidentally as we were talking.
Hey, this is like Alex gets the hunting lease people to give him his land. We can just start talking about stories and people can watch the show live and be like, oh, Anwar, let me send you a note, let you know.
They don't give me land, Ketch. They grant me access onto their land, and I'm very, very thankful.
They don't give you land.
Thank you for squaring away the technicalities.
Alex hasn't asked for that yet. Just ask for it, Alex. Somebody give me land, please. And
that's true. What's the worst thing that can happen? Everybody says no. But so far, Alex, you're like batting 1,000 on Modcast requests.
By the way, if anybody has land that I could access, you have access to. You have whitetail. We still have a little time left. It's Alex at rosterwatch.com. I'd love to come meet you. Love to come see your land. I'll shut all the gates behind me. I'll be very respectful.
He's a very studious user of property. Real quick, so part of what we did, and hey, I'll take a time now. You know, we've got over 500 people watching the show live. We are 114 away from 10,000 subscribers. That button is literally in front of your face. Just click it while you're watching this. It would do us a lot of good. We're trying to get to 10,000. It's like a little bet we made amongst ourselves. Not like North Dallas 40 bets, but just we wanted to be able to have a goal, and we thought it would be cool if by the end of the week we get to 10,000. I think we will, but it'd be cool to be able to do it in the middle of this show. So, yes, click on the subscribe button. Do it for Alex and Jason's kids. Merry Christmas to them. If our accounting of the recruiting class is correct, Jason, Texas has 5 remaining spots of which they can, before they hit 33. I think if I remember correctly, that we're taking one. We're assuming that Ronald Lewis isn't going to sign with Texas in February.
That takes him to 26 in the 2020.
We're including Quinn Ewers.
And then that takes him to 27.
And just for conversation's sake, we're counting Ryan Watts, the Ohio State transfer, and I've seen a bunch of Ryan Watts conversation. We'll do something specific on him in just a second, but I wanted to open up a larger piece of conversation that we kind of did a little bit on the show last night, but I think it's really interesting because it really is the shadow that hovers above every kid that makes a decision from here on out. The numbers have gotten tight. We think they've got 5 spots left to use before their head is against the 33 number that they would have to aim for. Let's just open up a conversation about, now that it's the day after, what does it look like? Like, when this week is over, what do we need to be looking for on the portal side of things, the remaining prospects that exist? If Amari Bohr is going to be a guy that Texas is in on, and he's scheduled to make his decision on January 2nd. And if, let's say, he goes to Texas, that takes one of the last 5 remaining spots, and it probably impacts how they might approach the position he plays in the portal. So we've reached a point now where the numbers really matter, because I think there's a keen focus of, after Armani Winfield goes to Baylor, okay, so he's not taking up now we have a better sense of what's really out there.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think if you would have said a week ago, the staff probably would have said, what's the max you can do? Is it 8 from the portal to replace, right?
7.
7, okay. They probably would have said, okay, we're going to probably use all 7 of those transfer spots, but you're not turning away guys like Maalik Murphy and Terence Brooks and NATO, I think, was a surprise. I mean, you're not turning away NATO. You're not going to turn away Devon Campbell. You're not going to turn away Evan Stewart. I mean, if you end up taking 3, and they're all elite high school guys, that's what you do. That's what you do. Those are guys that are going to change your course of your program. So, I think those numbers are flexible, but you're right. They're going to have to reassess. Let's say, and I don't think Amari Bohr is going to wind up at Texas. I mean, it's possible. We'll poke around on that a little bit, but let's say Devon Campbell, they still think he's a lean. If they miss on Evan Stewart, if they miss on Denver, then they've got to really, reassess. Hey, we've got 4 or 5 spots maybe. Where do we prioritize these portal spots? Is it still going to be offensive line? There's been some kind of back channel offensive line talks with linemen in the portal. Is it going to be wide receiver? It's not going to be quarterback, I don't think, now that you got Quinn and Maalik coming in. I mean, unless some amazing quarterback that's got a lot of experience. So they're going to have to be really judicious with those portal spots in how they use them and on what position. I still think offensive line, you're going to want a veteran offensive lineman. And I think, like you said, wide receiver. I think wide receiver probably is going to be getting a spot or 2. Ryan Watts, we might as well talk about him. I was looking at my phone. I was texting with Ryan on Monday, and he did say on Monday, I've talked to Terry Joseph, I've talked to Steve Sarkisian, and I'm going to try to get back in touch with Ryan for the War Room tonight. But I heard last night, and I posted this on our board on Orange Bloods last night, I heard that's basically a done deal. So that might be a spot, we can allocate like you kind of already did, but I mean, that looks like that's probably going to be a spot that needs to be allocated there for the defensive backfield.
Alex, what would you do knowing the numbers that we've kind of outlined? And look, if they have 5 remaining and we all have future casted Devin Campbell to Texas and we haven't changed that. So let's pretend we live in a world where they get Devin Campbell and now they have 4 spots left. One of those spots goes to that offensive line spot with Devin Campbell. Where would you use the remaining 4, knowing the needs of this team going into the next season?
Well, I mean, with now Chris Adamora is gone. So I wrote about the safeties. It's basically, Bryan Allen Jr., Austin Jordan, those guys are going to come in and they're going to be immediately part of the 2 deep next year. It's going to be JD Coffey and Brenen Thompson to start next year. JD Coffey was good in the limited snaps he had last season, but he didn't play much. And it was mainly towards the end of games that you saw number 27 out there. So I know we talked about it on Slack a little bit. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts about this. When I first watched, and I had not watched Terrance Brooks, the cornerback out of Little Elm, until yesterday. When I did, I said, well, this to me looks like a definite guy who could be a candidate for safety. He's really good in the box. He's really good in run support. He weighs 190 pounds. It looks like he has a frame that he could put even a little bit more on that. I know he can turn and run with guys, and I know that you like to have that length at corner, but Texas really does have needs at safety right now with, BJ Foster gone, now Chris Adamora is gone. Chris Adamora was having to split time between the nickel and the safety anyway, as it is. So things are very, very slim there. Of course, Devon Campbell, he's the best offensive line prospect in this class. So you're going to want to continue to go after him. I like what they've done with identifying some players at the edge position who could come in. I don't think it can ever hurt to keep on adding those guys, because when you look at some of these dudes, I know when I watched 90 from Westlake, what's his name, man? The 90 from Westlake, the Ohio State.
Ethan Burke.
Yeah. I mean, dude, that if you've seen his senior film, it's strong, quite strong. That guy looks like a young Jason Taylor or something, but he's I think his body will fill out to where he's going to be play more of that jack end and less of the buck end. I think that looking for more of these kind of defensive end linebacker hybrids that can really just get something going on with the rush and be more impactful than Ray Thornton was last year will be important. And I just think with the major problem that was with the defense last season, you just throw as much spaghetti up against the wall as you possibly can. I don't necessarily. I see these comments saying that you got to take one OL in the portal. It's like, how many has Texas got? They've gotten 6. They could get 7 with Devon Campbell. People are just like, well, you got to have these older guys. They're going to be able to come in while these younger guys develop. And I was like, well, have you seen some of these portal guys that have come in? Have you looked at some of these dudes that they've had these guys come in recent years that haven't even sniffed like the 3 deep. I'm thinking about the junior called Willie something. Do you guys remember the
Willie Tyler?
Willie Tyler. These kind of guys. You don't need guys like that when you're recruiting. And Texas has played freshman linemen for the longest time. Kerstetter, Shackelford. Cosby played a little bit as a lineman. We know Connor played as a lineman as a freshman this year. Carrick played last year. Jake Majors played last year. Vahe played as a freshman. Connor Williams played as a freshman. The freshmen have gotten in there and been good. If they've been better than the guys who are currently there, I don't necessarily think they're bringing in a portal guy unless it is truly a Calvin Anderson, Parker Braun type of dude who is going to come in and contribute right off as a starter. I'm not sure that an offensive lineman is going to be a priority unless they find that one guy who really can be that, that piece that they can kind of build this depth around as this depth comes into seasoning, because it's very, very this offensive line class is just awesome, with or without Devon Campbell, even though Devon Campbell is the best of the group.
Anwar, if you listen to all of this and have, because the thing I've been just trying to figure out is where, you know what I mean? It's not so obvious for me. Like a year ago, they dumped all their transfer resources for the most part at linebacker. I think I would still go get an inside. I think that kid at UNLV is probably the biggest miss from the last week and a half that I think really impacted the 2022 team, because I'm convinced if you're starting that kid next to Overshown inside at linebacker, now you're cooking with grease a little bit. I don't know that position, especially since they lost Kobe McKenzie in the process. I feel like they could use a spot there, but I'm not so all in on offensive line or anything else, I don't think.
Well, I'm okay with what they're doing with the offensive line, with the premise of with me understanding this is a rebuild. So because I go in and view this as a rebuild, I'm okay with them saying, okay, these young guys are gonna have to learn, grow, and develop. I don't look at 2022 as the season. I'm saying like, oh, this is that 11-1 year that you've been waiting for. Like, I view it as there's still going to be another building block. So I'm okay with that, but to stop the bleeding occurred on defense this year. I just think you can't have enough of those guys, whether it's from the linebacker position, whether it is from the DB position, and still in the need. They do have a lot of young guys, but getting a good edge rusher, I still think it's a priority, and that still needs to be addressed. So for me, linebacker, defensive line, especially specifically edge rusher, like that to me is the areas where they can definitely improve. And of course, wide receiver, just because you have Xavier Worthy, and I know Jordan Whittington is going to be back, and I know Troy O'Meara will be back. Those are two guys who, when healthy, have played well. Well, at least Troy has practiced well. I don't think he's gotten into a game yet. But the issue has been, can they stay healthy? So finding another burner that's like the Xavier Worthy kind of mold that he likes. And I know, they've obviously, signed one on signing day, but finding, another one of those guys, that'd be my top three catch.
I'm curious, what's everybody's – I give you one – if there was one scholarship remaining, where would everybody use it? What position? Knowing that the purpose of the transfer spot is to get someone who's an immediate upgrade and starter if available at this particular position.
And that's out of the transfer portal. We can use this one spot, or out of the high school?
Yeah, I'm letting you use one transfer portal spot, the player you would like or area you'd like to see most upgraded.
Well, to me, it's easy for me. It would just be who's the better player, the more impact player, the player who can come in and potentially start and make an impact at either the defense, the defensive edge rush position, or at the safety position. Whichever one's better and is going to be more effective from the start. I feel like that both of those are as glaring needs. It's a more glaring need is from the defensive end spot, just because they need to get an organic pass rush. It was miserable last year, but it's just with the safeties. They've just all of a sudden it's just become so thin that, if there's a guy who could come in and possibly compete to start, the back end of the defense and being able to tackle on the back end of the defense is clearly pretty important too. So yeah, I think it's kind of a tie.
If you have a good defensive line, that makes your back end of your defense look a lot better. I'm with Alex, man. They've got to improve their pass rush. Someone's at wide receiver. Don't lose sight of Troy O'Meara, like Anwar said. If he comes back healthy, they've got a pretty top-heavy, talented wide receiver group. But I just think that if I had to pick one, yes, it would be an edge guy or defensive end, someone who can create havoc in the opponent's backfield week in and week out.
Anwar?
We're back to me on this just one, huh?
You just get one.
I'll go pass rush. Because
okay.
I give me an edge rusher. I gotta have somebody that can just consistently get to the ball, and where it doesn't have to always be from a blitzing situation.
What's interesting about that is they would have taken Winfield yesterday, it seems, and they will still take Evan Stewart if Evan Stewart wants to come. So it seems like from an accounting standpoint, Texas seems to have at least one wide receiver spot that, in a perfect world, they would still take. Now, Savion Red comes in. He told us yesterday that he's being recruited as a slot receiver, right?
Yes.
Jason?
That's what he told Cole, yeah.
Now, I kind of view him a little bit like Deshaun Hales. I could understand if he's a guy that when he comes in plays maybe some hybrid. I can see where you could use him in both spots.
Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, exactly. In this world of positionless football to a certain extent, maybe something like that.
He's the guy for the Falcons. Cordell Patterson.
Patterson.
Yeah, so
he's just a guy that I can see where, okay, let's see where he plays best. But it seems like receiver, edge rusher, helping the secondary. That's 3. Those are the most obvious ones, right? Edge. If you can find an edge guy that can help you get to the quarterback better, you have to get one of those guys.
Those guys don't grow on trees in the portal, though. And you think you could go get one in Ray Thornton, and it's just these guys aren't that good.
Nobody wanted Ray Thornton, just Texas.
Right. Yeah, it's true.
Like, I think, but look, I think you make a good point, Alex, where the rub is just because there's a good guy in the portal doesn't mean that you're going to get him.
Those guys are more likely going to the NFL than they are the portal.
But I think if you spend 5 months trying to get an edge rusher and one doesn't show up, and you're like, well, let's take Keelan Robinson late because we love him, and maybe he's not at the position that we want, but we'll take a talent that improves the roster. I think you probably want a receiver that could impact next. I think that you can find. Boy, the receivers that transferred last year exploded. Guys that were really good players. Charleston Rambo goes from a really good player at Oklahoma to a great player at Miami. You look at Jamison Williams, goes from Ohio State to Alabama. And Alex, what is his NFL stock? I'm just curious. He's fast.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know yet. I don't know.
Okay.
I'll have to talk. I've only talked to people about Mechie so far as those guys. So
he just feels like one of the next Alabama receivers that somewhere in that first round will get taken. But there are receivers that can be found that have been super productive. It'll be interesting to see. Curious who they target. They definitely have their own eyes. Could you get Gary Patterson? What would Gary Patterson eyes tell? I would almost trust a guy like Gary Patterson to scout and look over film of transfers and then to say, this guy helps the defense.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Ketch, you're onto something there, man. Yeah. I hadn't thought about that. You're cooking.
Just let him nerd out on college football, all 22 film.
Well, and you've said this for years, Ketch. I mean, you even say you get your LSR up and you're like, all right, well, hold on, wait. Who is Patterson offered who's not on this LSR? Like, because I need to go back and swing back and get. He's got an eye for it, and he's got an eye for guys who fit into what he wants to do specifically. So I think that's super. It's almost like you could have him. How in the NFL they have the college scouting department and they have the pro scouting department. It's almost like you could have the high school scouting department and you could have the portal scouting department, which would be sort of like the version of the pro scouting department and the National Football League.
Just something to think about. But, it's weird. In a week, we've gone from this is a really hard conversation to have a week ago because there were still twice as many spots available. So they had 10 spots available. And, if they're shopping in a world where they're taking 7 transfers, they can pretty much do anything. The numbers have just suddenly gotten tighter in a way that they can't be willy-nilly with what they do next. And I think it says a lot about Savion Red, Jason, and how much they like him, that they knew. Look, they told a couple of guys, hey, we don't know about numbers. Why don't you wait and see about signing? They literally, Anthony Jones signs with Oregon because Texas was like, oops, numbers are getting tight. We're going to have to slow down with you a little bit. They could have done that to Savion Red. They could have said, you wait until signing day to make a decision, and like our number situation changed.
Yeah, but they just offered him a week ago, so it's
I mean,
it's not like he was dicking around.
SEC rules. All of a sudden, we're I didn't even know that the word process was a verb.
It's been processed.
I've heard a lot of words used to describe what you do with a guy that's committed that you no longer want. I've always just called it the old Billy Don Malone, but this idea of process, it sounds like a very cute word to put onto something that's not a real good thing to have to do. Some call processed a trapdoor. There's a lot of words for it, but that they took that guy when numbers were tight and we're all in on him late. I mean, that more than anything else has me curious about him, that that they were willing to go all in with him when he doesn't fit the profile of some of the other guys are waiting on.
Yeah, and listen, I like Savion Red. I mean, I love his versatility. I mean, I think he can do a lot of different things for Texas, but let's be honest, they went after him and targeted him when Evan Stewart came off the board, when Matthew Golden said, hey, no, I'm not, Texas isn't even among my finalists. I mean, they kind of had to go down their board a little bit at receiver, and that's been a common theme at the receiver position. Andre Coleman, the receivers coach, has taken a lot of heat for that, deservedly so. I mean, he has to do a better job of landing top shelf receiver talent. The last 2 cycles, he just hasn't done it. And people can point to Xavier Worthy. That was a Steve Sarkisian get, and that was kind of a unique situation in itself. But in traditional receiver recruiting, Texas is lagging behind others, and that can't happen, man. You've got so much to sell. You've got NIL stuff. You've got Steve Sarkisian and his history and what he's done with receivers. Look at Xavier Worthy. You've got that to sell. Receivers should be beating down the door to come to Austin, and yet Texas keeps missing on guy after guy after guy after guy. Red, Red is, I like him as a player. I think he's got some versatility that Texas can utilize. But, I mean, if we're being honest, they did miss on several other priority targets before they went after Savion Red.
Alex, our producer, Michael Rockman, had a comment that I put up. And yes, the comments for some reason have stopped. But it says, if I get one scholarship, I get Akeem Young, the safety from Iowa State. It's a pretty good shout. Like, if we were going to get specific and say, of the guys in the portal that could help Texas immediately, that safety from Iowa
Michael
State.
Doesn't think the safeties they have 2. Texas has currently 2 safeties coming back. I mean, how is that? I mean, last I checked, you got to play 2 of these guys in most formations, in most personnel groupings. They have 2 true ones coming in. I'm talking about maybe trying to take a really good corner prospect and pigeonhole him into safety. Just they don't have these guys. I mean, you need to fill out a 2 deep. So I mean, I'm not sure it's the most important position, but as far as from a pure numbers perspective, I mean, it's inarguable that there's a greater need. So I think that makes plenty of sense. For sure.
Jason, what have we not talked about? I'm looking at the clock. We want to start wrapping things up here in like the next 10 minutes. I feel like we've talked about all of the individual prospects. Is there anybody that
Kendrick Law we have, and someone asked about him. Our comments froze up a while back, unfortunately. But yeah, someone asked about Kendrick Law, the athlete out of Shreveport. He's going to announce on Friday. There's been a lot of generated buzz, if you will, with him in Texas this week. I feel like there's been a lot of manufactured buzz maybe on a few guys in Texas. What I know about Kendrick Law, Texas really likes him. He's a good receiver. He's a good defensive back. He wants to play receiver. I heard yesterday that you hate the silent commitment thing, but he's pretty much a silent commitment to Alabama. Now, Alabama has picked up, I think they're up to 5, maybe 6 receivers. So does that change his mind? Maybe so, but I've also heard Alabama's more worried about LSU than they are Texas. And the other one, Jacoby Matthews, is another one that people have asked about in the chat earlier. Jacoby, I mean, there was, again, manufactured stuff about Jacoby's going to sign early and it's going to be with Texas. No, that was never a possibility. Jacoby Matthews told people that I know on Sunday, hey, I'm going to wait till February and take a few more official visits. He does like Texas a lot. 5-star safety Jacoby Matthews out of Louisiana I'm talking about. Loves, Alex, to your point, loves the depth chart. Texas is hitting him with, he's a safety. Hey, dude, look at our depth chart. And this was before, they were hitting him with that before B.J. Foster and Adamora entered the portal. So Jacoby Matthews has to be salivating looking at Texas's depth chart. Can Texas get him in the end in February? Will they have room for him? I don't know. I think that's a bit of a long shot. I would probably still favor LSU with Jacoby Matthews. So those are 2 guys. Kendrick Law does announce on Friday, though, so we'll be keeping an eye on Kendrick Law Friday afternoon. I think it's 3:00 Friday afternoon he announces.
Anwar, last thing before parting shots. We haven't mentioned Stan Drayton's name yet. I mean, that feels so 2 weeks ago, and it was only yesterday Texas losing their running backs coach to Temple. Obviously, that will be a position that Texas has to fill. Let's just circle back around on the Drayton discussion real fast, since we hadn't talked about it yet.
Yeah, I mean, well, one, you start with Stan Drayton, the person, right? So you say props to him, for, getting promoted and becoming a head coach. Like, you can't begrudge a guy for, being able to get to a position that he's been ultimately working many years to get to. So he has the opportunity there at Temple. He's got an AD that he's familiar with, that he's worked with here in Texas, and if given the resources, we'll see what happens. But the great thing about a guy like Stan Drayton, and I think Jason kind of mentioned it. I think it was yesterday, just highly respected, within the industry, highly respected from players. He's a guy that could literally have Ezekiel Elliott fly up to Philly and speak to the team without with a blink of the eye rather. So it's a good thing for him, and happy for him and his family. From a Texas perspective, I do view it as a little bit of a loss. Some will say like, well, how great of a recruiter was he really, or is not? Well, at the end of the day, he's highly respected. He did recruit, well. He was able to pull a 5-star, out there, and that's after missing on Noah Kane and Trey Sanders in 1 year, and there was a lot of questions about, well, what can he really do as a recruiter? And he did get Keontae Ingram, who was in the top running back in the state of Texas when he came out. He was able to get Bijan, who was a 5-star. Are you impressed with my recruiting conversation right now?
You got notes written down.
This is off the dome, man. I just want some enthusiasm about this, man.
I'm still pumped up that you went into your Derek Brown conversation. You did your huddle watching.
Oh yeah.
And you were ready to bust out with who your most underrated prospect was.
So much easier when you don't actually have to cover it. So it's just so much more fun. You have more fun with it. But so it's a loss from a recruiting perspective. But to a certain degree. But if they go out and the one thing I think we can safely say is, the questions that we may have had, like overall, I think Steve Sarkisian's made some pretty solid hires, and so you get the feeling that he'll probably go out and find another good solid hire for the running back position, whether he goes outside, whether he goes inside and promotes a guy like Brandon Harris, who has aspirations to become a coach. But it is definitely it is a loss, and so props to him, and we'll see what Sarkisian does as far as replacing him.
Let's go into Pardon Shot.
Breaking news. Catch a little breaking news. Evan Stewart posted on his Instagram live that he was apparently at the dentist earlier today. So there's that.
Oh man, stop the presses.
Wait, here we go. Can y'all see that? I don't know if you can see that, but
this is what we get when we go live.
That's the kind of shit that kept me up at 2 in the morning. My phone's going off.
See, you can't be the new Texas running backs coach because you have to do Sark after dark and stay up and worry about this guy at 1:30 in the morning every night instead of just one night. That's funny.
That's hilarious, by the way.
You thought I really had breaking Evan Stewart news, didn't you?
No, I didn't. I was waiting for what the rub was, and it arrived. Alex, we're starting with you with parting shots because you weren't here last week, and there was an anticipation that maybe you would have a rant against Spectrum Cable for not living up to the standards that we all feel like they need to you, but you're okay, right?
I'm okay. I would not have been okay last week. Because it still wasn't fixed. What I finally did, and if you ever have issues with your cable or your internet and you work from home like I do, and you do broadcasting, like I do stuff like this. I do these streams. I do radio on Sirius XM where it's like I depend on this, and I was missing shifts, right? I was missing these shows. I was missing my radio shows, and I couldn't get these people out. I mean, I was talking to people at plant operations. They're talking to me about going and fixing a node and like going to like all this, and it's up the line, and they replaced everything in the house, everything from the pole to my house and all this stuff. And so I just finally said, well, I don't really have many options here. I live out on Lake Travis. I'm technically in Spicewood. I'm kind of out in the woods, right? And so the only other option I have is AT&T, who I hate with the fire of 10,000 suns, and I would never want to use. Plus, their maximum upload speeds are like 5 Mbps, which is just completely unacceptable. We need to have this stuff to even do these streams without screwing up. You basically need like 12 as far as upload speeds, but as far as what's going to keep you making sure that you're not going to screw everything up or drop off the call, like you kind of want it to be up around 20. So 5 is just not going to get it. What I had to do was finally, when I realized after a month of dealing with these idiots, I had to go to a competing arm of I had to go to Spectrum Business. And when Spectrum Business came in, they ran a whole new line to the house. Now, I probably should have Spectrum Business anyway. This is my business and stuff, but I cannot believe how much this costs. It's like $150 extra just for this one internet line on top of what I pay for the internet for the rest of the house and the TVs and everything. But it's what I do for a living. I can write it off. So Spectrum, I mean, shout out, I guess, for getting it done. But that's to the commercial side, not to the residential side. I see in the comments people are saying that Spectrum's bad. They've had bad luck with them. Hey man, you do what you want to do. It's the only option that I have out here where I live. And then secondly, just shout out to some more of our members. E-Cheese gave me a call out yesterday on the board about questions he wanted answered about the offensive line recruits. So I just put up my answer to E-Cheese's call out up on the board with some insight, my kind of scouting reports on these guys, where I kind of see them. So if you're a member of Orange Bloods, go check that out. If you're not, give Ketch an email, man. He said he'll hook you up with some kind of deal, man. It's a cool time to join right now. I see Eric Torres in the chat is saying time to move. I know a realtor. Well, first Eric Torres, he then links his own website as a real estate agent. Second, man, dude, I am moving out of this house. Feet first, man. They're gonna have to take me out of this place feet first. I ain't moving. So I'm stuck with Spectrum. My final bit of parting shot is another shout out to more Orange Bloods members. As usual, I don't want to say their names, but I did get to go out and hang with a super cool dude out at his ranch earlier this month, heading out on Monday just for a quick Monday night, Tuesday night trip with another guy that's had me out to his ranch before and going to look for some axis deer. Can't tell you guys how much I appreciate all this. And again, I can be reached, DMs on Orange Bloods or Alex Dunlap at rosterwatch.com.
I'll go next. Has anybody got a vacation home they want me to babysit for a week or two? Beach, mountains, I don't care where it is, man. I'm good. Jason at orangeblood.com.
Alex, you should respect that realtor because he's got the same hustle that you've got. Like,
Yep.
Let me get my link into this chat so I can get some business going. That's a man after your own heart.
Eric Torres, ericsellshome.com.
That's a brother from another mother. Jason, let's let Anwar go second because he had the timeline. I want to make sure we don't get him in trouble.
Yeah, I have a very important thing, which is by 11 o'clock, I need to go to my son's preschool and drop off a book for a book exchange, apparently, that I got. I've received an email about it, this morning, wanting to know where his book was. So I need to literally go in there, grab a book and drop it off. So couple of things. First of all, didn't make the fantasy football playoffs. And, I think I was initially kind of like, oh, man, this is some BS. And I was initially on, man, this league sucks and all the other type of stuff. But at the end of the day, man, you got to win games. Like, there's some crap I don't like about our league. I don't think it makes sense that we have a league that points doesn't factor in at all when it comes to tie-breaking decisions. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
That's ludicrous. Yeah, that's ludicrous.
It is ludicrous. Thank you, Jason Suchomel. So
you were a charter member of said league, Jason. You were part of this.
Yeah, and I'd be throwing a fit like Anwar.
That's why we threw Suchomel out and have never asked him back.
Ask him back every year. You just kind of try to,
I didn't this year.
Not this year, but every year it's like, oh, you're not man enough to do it. Every year is like poking at his pride to see if he'll bite, and usually he never does. He's like, I don't want to deal with it. So it does suck. But you know what? I did win $50, for a point scored. So anyway, I have that. It is what it is. And then like the last thing, Catch, I will say something that you said last year has been ringing in my ear all throughout the last few weeks, which is my damn son and his damn Santa crap. And all I keep thinking about is, you know what? Life is going to just, hand him so many other bad things in life. Let him have it. So I've been doing it begrudgingly, but I have been doing it. So what I do is I nod. I've been wrapping presents. And so for his presents, I just put his name on, and I don't put a from. I don't put a from on it. You just have to guess. All right. If it's from your Santa dude, so be it. Last year I put all of them from Dad. Like, I'm not gonna lie, every single one I put from Dad. And I was like, all right. And then yesterday he asked me, he goes, Dad, do we ever have have you ever had an elf on the shelf? I was like, really, dude? Are we really doing this? Because he does elf on the shelf at his mom's house. He's like, have we ever done that? I was like, I think so. He goes, oh, I just never seen an elf on the shelf here. I'm like, so I got to buy an elf and then put it in different places?
You've been judged.
I have been judged. But you know what? The judgment comes when he realizes who lied to him and who didn't. And that's where the ultimate judgment is going to come from. And so you know what? I'm going to be like, hey, dude, I just let you do your thing. I ain't saying you. But then, his mom is going to come over on Christmas Eve, and because my mom will be here visiting, and she's going to make cookies, and they're going to lay it out for Santa, and I'm just going to drink in the other room and just not be a part of that foolishness. So, but I've been thinking about you all over every day for the past couple of weeks. I've been like, man, just bite your tongue, man. Bite your tongue on this damn thing. But I ain't down with it.
Be a good person, and you are.
I am. But
when you get your drink on in a room by yourself, remember, that's the good person and you doing a good thing.
I can't. Can I show you one thing that it just happened like the board on fire?
Of course.
Do we have to have kids put on the earmuffs or anything with this? We're not giving.
I have no idea what's about to happen.
Not giving away any big state secrets to anybody listening to this in the car with their kids, right?
This is the Santa that he gets to see every day, though. That's my.
Well, what's unusual about that? It's Santa Claus.
It is Santa.
So I have that same Santa in my house.
Well, this is our Santa. It's the Santa in our house.
That's great.
Oh, Jason, any parting shots?
You'd love it.
Anwar, you and I are like two peas in a pod, brother. First off, we have the elf on the shelf, and my wife does these crazy elaborate things every time. Usually, if I have the rear situation where I have to move it, I'm like, okay, I'll just move them from this corner to another. And sometimes I'll stay up late and have a cocktail, and I'll forget. So then you have to explain to your little ones, well, why didn't Cookies or else? Why didn't Cookie move? Oh, Dad stayed up too late last night and he loses his magic at midnight or whatever. So those things are a pain in the ass. Don't do it, man. That would be my advice. Secondly, this wasn't my parting shot, but you reminded me. Christmas presents. My oldest daughter is 16. She's a sneakerhead. My other kids are not. My oldest daughter is a sneakerhead. And then they call them sneakerheads, right? And she wants these shoes. Well, you can't find them. They're like low top Jordans, whatever. There's a website called GOAT, G-O-A-T. And I was like, all right, that's the only freaking thing she wants. I'm going to buy her these shoes, right? $230, not counting tax, not counting shipping. And I argued with my wife. I'm like, what kind of example are we setting for our daughter that we're going to spend this much money on a pair of shoes? That's a bad precedent. You're opening Pandora's box. Well, whatever. I'm going to be super dad. So I bought the shoes, right? This is about 3 weeks ago. They come in. My wife finally she's going to wrap presents the other day. She's like, you ordered the wrong size of shoes, they're non-returnable.
Oh,
You can't return them. Yes.
Oh, no.
So now I'm like, mother effer. What do I do now? Do I buy another pair of $250 sneakers and try to sell these ones on eBay or whatever? But yeah,
Give them away. Give them away.
Anybody wear a size 8 women's size 8 Jordans?
What size was it supposed to be? How far off were you? I mean, she can't.
That's what I said. Can she curl? I was one. She's a 9 women's. I'm like, can she curl her toes up and just
dad of the year? You don't even know your kid's sizes.
Well, am I allowed to say that that's just dumb on Jason's part? Like that? No, he's over here fretting about.
She has another pair and they're 8, and she wears them big, but they're 8 men's. So I just looked at those. I'm like, oh, these are an 8. So
but then you said you got a 7.
No, I bought an 8 because her other one's an 8. She needs a 9. So I have basically a pair of 8s that I need to somehow unload to somebody.
Okay, well that's an honest. It sounded like you made a $235 shoe purchase and didn't double check the right size. At which point I have a hard time feeling sorry for you.
There's probably a little bit of truth to that too. But so my other parting shot, I'm going to scroll down these comments. And Noel Willis asked, and I know people want to hear it, Harris, Perkins, Campbell. He said Evan Stewart, I'm assuming. I'm just going to kind of give predictions on those 4 dudes. Denver Harris, I'm predicting A&M. Harold Perkins, I think he's going to A&M in January. Devon Campbell, Texas or Oklahoma. I still favor Texas. The fact that he keeps pushing things back is a little worrisome. He can now take another official visit to Oklahoma. Bill Bedenbaugh staying at Oklahoma. So, if you're a Texas fan, you don't want him to go up there. You don't want him to fall in love with the new Oklahoma staff, including the offensive lineman Bedenbaugh, who's staying. But I am picking Texas for Devon Campbell. Evan Stewart, I'm sticking with my prediction of Texas A&M. Someone said I'll give you 150 for those shoes. Hey, Ballin Realty, they were about 275. You can probably on the market right now. I saw. So if you want to go 200, email me at Jason@OrangeBloods.
What has happened to this show today?
I'm the anti-Alex. I'm like, Alex trying to get shit. I'm trying to sell shit. So, but yeah, those are my predictions, guys. And I'm assuming we'll do one of these next week, but if not, if people can't watch it, whatever, have Merry Christmas to everybody a week early, but we'll probably cross that bridge next week. But that's my parting shot. Somebody hit me up on those sneakers. Boom.
There you go. I'm so upset. I have nothing to hustle right now. I just wanted to say Urban Meyer's name real quick as a parting shot. Speaking of alternative universes, there's an alternative universe where Texas is where Urban Meyer is right now. And one day after the signing day that Texas just had, it's interesting to think about what life might look like with Urban Meyer as the head coach at Texas. And what would that have been like? Alex, I have a feeling he would have tried to have brought the disgraced the trainer with him to Texas.
The Iowa guy.
And I think that unlike the NFL situation, I think that guy probably sticks because I just don't know that the college bounce back would have been as strong and swift as the NFL pushback, which was the pro guys just weren't going to stand for that. And there's
I don't even know when you can start with. This is your parting shot, but there's just a million things you could point to that he's done.
Yes,
I mean, starts with that. Then you got James Robinson, and you draft Travis Etienne because you couldn't get Kadarius Toney, which would have been a terrible pick that Dave Gettleman's going to get fired for. You bring in a coaching staff that nobody in this world can understand the way these pieces all fit together. You run this idiotic this quarterback competition between Gardner Minshew and goddamn Trevor Lawrence that's like saps Trevor Lawrence of all the practice time that he was going to get coming into the season. And we've seen how that's played out. I mean, it's a list of thing after thing after thing, and now you get it. It's like he's telling his coaches they suck. He's had the thing where he's touching the girl inappropriately at the bar when he should have flown home with the rest of the team, and now he's kicking his long snapper. He's doing some. I mean, what's going on with all this stuff? Yeah, it's just like he's out. He's out. I don't think it would have gone Would it have gone better at Texas? What about in your alternate universe? I mean, would it?
That's I keep thinking like a lot of these same things feel like that would have, maybe Monkeygate wasn't so bad after all, because I'm guessing the folks in Jacksonville would trade an assistant coach having a bizarre Halloween party monkey mishap more so than all of this junk. The crazy thing, the thing that I was going to say about Urban is he takes that NFL job and his name, he's disgraced. Like, part of his resume, he's one of the greatest college coaches of all time. He will now be remembered as one of the biggest NFL mistakes that anybody has ever made, ever. Somebody put his name in the same sentence as Chip Kelly, and I was like, well, wait a minute. Like, Chip Kelly had some morsels of success. Like, the Eagles weren't a disaster under Chip Kelly. Like, it actually looked like for a while Chip Kelly was revolutionizing offense in the NFL for 5 minutes. This situation, the legacy that it leaves, and while he's done this, every job that he's ever dreamed of having came available. USC was there. Notre Dame was there. He passed on Texas. Florida opened back up. LSU's been available. I mean, if there was ever a year to be Urban Meyer taking a college job, this would have been the year. This would have been the year. Look at the money that LSU just gave Brian Kelly. He could have had $100 million contract at the school of his choice, and he chose the NFL. And he's had an all-time epic flame out. It's bizarre. Like, I don't know that I thought he would make it, but I didn't think that he would come across looking like the most Mickey Mouse amateur hour head coach that the NFL has ever seen. And given how miserable of a human being he is, it kind of feels like karma won out for once, as opposed to bad people just never having bad things happen to them. This dude has had egg on his face for months.
I forgot to mention, Ketch, that this dude traded away a first-round cornerback from last year in C.J. Henderson for a damn backup tight end, Dan Arnold. Like, how much more can you do wrong over like just 14 weeks of football? It's just it's unbelievable.
They thought they had to get rid of Urban to save Trevor Lawrence. Like, how bad do you have to be that in the rookie year of your number one pick, you're like, oh, we just can't have this around him anymore. It's too dysfunctional. It reminds me of Urban last year do you remember this, Jason? Last year on the Fox channel, they were, he's actually really good on the set of Fox.
I don't know I was wondering can Fox even bring him back? I don't know, but go ahead. Yeah.
He was talking about the ways that a program is dysfunctional, and he had like his list of things that you knew your program was dysfunctional and the list of things you have to do to fix it. What a joke right now. It's amazing that guy, his reputation is so tarnished because he went to the NFL to differentiate himself from Nick Saban. He weirdly did, just in the way that he never thought that he would in a million years. He'll be back in college, but it will be interesting to see the world that awaits him in this any place he goes to now, because of everything that's happened. Any misstep will be magnified, and he'll need to go to a Baylor or someplace like that just doesn't care.
Yeah.
If you go to big powerhouse State U University where the media attention is always right on you, I don't know. I wonder if he can pull it off like he would have. I think we may have seen the end of Urban Meyer's powerhouse days, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that guy comes to college and reminds us all just how good he is when he's in the right environment. When he's able to boss around the players and treat people like crap and do it all in the name that he's the CEO and nobody else voices matter, he's really good. In the NFL, it doesn't quite work that way. Anyway, look, one last time, we're 92 subscribers away from 10,000. Do us a solid as we sign off here. The last thing you do us a favor. Click that subscription button. Get us just a little bit closer to our goal. We will remember each and every one of you individually as the guys that help get us. No, we won't. But we do thank you. We do. I see the little meter rolling right now. One of you just gave us a subscription. Don't make me beg. Grovel, yes. Beg, it's unbecoming. For myself, for Jason, who's grinning at just me begging. Alex, who I don't know, is a big fan of me begging. Anwar, who definitely is okay with me begging. And Michael Rockman, who's been telling me in our private chat, beg a little bit. Come on. Get those subscribers. Get us to 10,000. Thanks for watching. We're going to take a little break. We've done 8 hours of live broadcast breakdown over the course of the last 24 hours. We're going to chill out, go enjoy the rest of the weekend, I suppose. You guys have a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon. Later.